how do you even begin the process of heading into space?
Yeah.
How does one find themselves in space?
Yeah, well, it was not an easy path, I'll tell you that for sure. Yeah. So obviously born in Aberdeen, Scotland, and I come from a very dysfunctional background. So my mom was an alcoholic and my dad was absentee. And so for me, it was kind of I was very lucky that there was lots of libraries around in the 70s when I was born. And so, I spent a lot of my time in libraries kind of learning a lot of stuff. But working in anything in science was never encouraged. And I think that's such a disadvantage. And I'm hoping nowadays, like I'm trying to encourage STEM and STEAM and all that kind of stuff to make people more excited about that. And I don't know if you saw my Instagram, but I'm trying to push really hard this campaign called bridging the gap of the dream. So it's just get girls encouraged to do anything that, we never thought we could be. Like, I'm only the 85th woman who ever went to space, and this should be a lot more than that, given the 50 years that we've been doing space stuff. But yeah, so for me, it was more of I never thought I would have an opportunity. I looked at the stars as a kid and I kept looking at everything thinking, that's so amazing and that's so wonderful. I'm not that old where I saw this moonwalk. And so, but I did see the Challenger and some unfortunate things that happened. But I was inspired very much by Helen Sharman, who's English, when she won a ticket to go to space. So all those kind of things always, resonated with me. And I thought, well, there is hope for some people, but I'm from Scotland and I don't have any money, and so that those opportunities don't happen to people like me. So yeah, I just ended up working really hard. I ended up going out to London, getting a job there, making some money. I was modeling part-time. I was working, doing finance and just hustling. I just worked really hard the whole time. And then I moved out to Asia and I set up an IT company in the 90s and I made some money through that. And then in 2000, the International Space Station happened. So they had the Russians and the Americans shaking hands. And I remember watching the news story thinking, wow, how can people in space like create this peace when there's all this war happening on Earth? You read all in the news every time about how these different countries hate each other, but somehow they're like shaking hands and hugging each other and something that's above the planet. And it gave me hope. Obviously, from someone like me who came from like, divorced parents and there's always arguments around, I kept thinking, well, that's such a peaceful place. I must be able to get up there somehow. But yeah, so I never again wasn't in my peripheral, worked really hard, got some money together. And then I got really sick in 2009 and I got diagnosed with cancer. And while I was doing treatment, I got recommended to do something that would exercise both sides of the brain. So instead of being fully academic, learn a musical instrument or learn a language or do something completely different. So my friend was flying planes at the time. And so he said, why don't you come and jump in the plane and like, we'll have a lesson at the same time. And to be fair, I found it really boring. I got in and I was like, this is really crap. And when we landed, I turned around and I went, I like that. And there was helicopters on the other side of the heliport. And I was just like, and being from Aberdeen, it was a kid, I used to hear the helicopters, the choppers going on and off the oil rigs all the time. And so I was like, that resonates with me better. So I went over, introduced myself to the captain and said, can I get a lesson? And he was just like, okay, sure. And so they chatted to some people and then just started from there. Started flying helicopters, got introduced to a whole bunch of people through that. Was doing my exams, flew bigger helicopters, met other people through that. And yeah, I got introduced to some people in space agencies who worked their way through more the army side and through the Air Force side, like Dave McKay did. So he became a test pilot and then worked his way through that. And yet, so then they introduced me, and I was like, there must be a faster way to do this. Like, if I'm going to join the army and I'm going to do like 15 years of that, there must be a quicker way. So I got introduced to the Virgin Galactic team. And so I initially bought a ticket with them. And as we may know, it's kind of on a pause, which I'm not allowed to say they're on a pause, but they're having a little bit of a timeout from their launches. So yeah, I was doing a lot of stuff with them. I do coaching and consulting for companies, and I met a whole bunch of people through that who then introduced me to Blue Origin. And so they called me and were just basically, well, you've done all your space training. So with Virgin Galactic, you get offered these opportunities to train. And because I knew other people in other space agencies, I got offered to train with them too. So I trained, I was in Russia for a little while doing some astronaut training out there with the cosmonauts. I went to the States, trained with some NASA astronauts at NASTAR. And through all those opportunities, the Blue Origin one came up. And they were just like, we've heard your story. We like what your ethos is about. And someone's dropped out of one of their launches, and we know that you're completely qualified for this. Would you like to go? And I'll never forget when they told me it was in 2020 and I had 3 months. They told me I had 3 months to train and that was it. And they said, well, you already know you're training, but you've got 3 months. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you sign all these NDAs and they're telling you can't tell anyone until a month before launch. So the only person I could tell was my daughter. I'm a single parent and I have a daughter. So I told my daughter about it and she was super excited. And closer to the launch, they had an anomaly. So it got scrubbed. And then because of that, we were on hold for a while. And then yeah, two years later it finally came up. So
Were
I
you
finally got the
affected by
opportunity.
COVID with that, or was that not something you were?
No,
Mm.
no, no. They had some technical issues with
Okay.
one of the rockets.
Yeah, I take it it's one of those things that they have to go when they're going.
Well, when they say it's rocket science, it really is. And
Mm.
the slightest thing, health and safety is always a number one priority, which I am very, very grateful for. And so because of that, they just basically they had some issues and just said, look, we're not going to risk anybody's life over this, so we're
Mhm.
just going to have to wait till we fix it entirely. So
Okay,
yeah.
so we're take us forward to like August 2024 when you're actually called up. How are you feeling at that point? What was the process?
Well, prior to it, Blue Origin only give you like 3 days training, well, 4 days training prior to it. But because I've done everything else, I was already overqualified for this actual launch. I mean, it's only a total of 10 minutes, 10 seconds that we were actually in space.
Mhm.
And for me, I did all this training and I had done everything that I was like, well, I'm kind of overexcited about it to the point where I was meditating, consulting, was actually, sitting down with the rest of my crew and trying to help them integrate what we were going to do. So for me, it was an easy process to the point that even the CEO was questioning the night before the launch. We were all sitting down as a team dinner, and they're like, Nicolina, should we be worried about you? And I was like, why? And they said, you're extremely calm, and most astronauts are a bit nervous the night before. And I'm like, no, I've waited my whole life for this. Like, I'm totally ready for it. So,
Mhm.
no, it was
Mhm.
amazing. I was just so, yeah, the night before, I slept so well. I woke up refreshed the next morning. I was jumping up and down. I was like, okay. I was like, can we go? I was just so excited to go. And that was in the morning. We were being in quarantine for 5 days before we see anyone. And in the morning, we finally get to see all our friends and family who've come to the launch. And you get 20 minutes with everyone. So I was quickly hugging everyone. I was like, you can stay for 5 more minutes. I'm like, no, 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 get me to the launch pad. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
And what was that blast off like? How did it feel?
So they have incredible training. I have to say, I take my hat off to the whole, they're called Crew Seven is the person who teaches us. So we're six astronauts on the actual shuttle, and the seventh person who trains us is called Crew Number Seven. So her name is Sarah Knights. She was phenomenal. And so during the whole time, they'd realized through the six human flight launches they had prior to ours, we were human flight eight. The seven prior launches they'd had, they always get feedback from all the previous astronauts. And so they pre-warned us that prior to launch, there's going to be, when you listen to countdown, it goes three, you hear movies that the rocket starts taking off, but
Mm-hmm.
it isn't actually like that. There's another
Okay.
7 seconds before you take off. So in the 7 seconds, because there's a floor to ceiling window by the side of you, all you see is this fire raging by the side of the window. Inside the camera goes a bright red color. And then suddenly, because of the velocity of all the fuel going underneath, you see all this dust kicking up from the side as well. So you think the whole shuttle is about to collapse. So
Mm-hmm.
in that 6 seconds, we're counting down. We're going six, five, four. And we're like, please get to one and take off. Because if it doesn't, then you know something's happened to the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like the exhilaration of the takeoff is just absolutely incredible.
And how did it feel when she got up in space?
So yeah, because you're just pinned to your seat. They custom make the seats for you. It's like a bucket seat.
Mm-hmm.
So you're lying down head to toe, basically round in a circle, because the rocket's in a circular shape in the capsule. And so you're sitting there and you're pinned down. You have a 5 point harness and you're seated in your seat and you're white knuckling it. You're literally sitting there, your hands are holding onto the side, and you look out the window and there's a monitor in front too. So as I'm looking in the monitor, because of all my aerospace training, because I've been in helicopters, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, 30,000 feet. I've been here before. I'm like 40,000 feet. And I'm looking out the window and I'm thinking, oh, the Earth's getting fast, going down really fast. Like no matter how much you fly in a plane, nothing goes. We went Mach 3, 4,000 kilometers an hour straight up. And I mean, even, I was joking the other day that I was talking to a Formula One driver and he was bragging about they do like 2,000 like miles an hour in the car. And all of a sudden, he had no idea I'd flown to space. And he's like, well, you don't seem very impressed. And I went, I just flew 4,000 kilometers an hour last, like, 2 months ago. So beat that one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you get pinned in your seat all the way down. And it's just, you don't think about it. You just think more of the view. I mean, that's what you're there for. So I was looking out the window. the ground's getting smaller and we pierce through the clouds and suddenly we get this bright light of the sun coming into the shuttle.
Hmm.
So it gets really light and within a minute it's like a light switch goes off and it goes black.
Hmm.
And suddenly you feel yourself lifted inside your seat and it's just you've got no gravity. It goes completely silent. And then you're looking around and you're like, and I just suddenly screamed, "Oh my God, we're in space, we're in space." And at that point in time, we have a monitor in front of our seat. So we all started unclipping. We high-fived. And then, just for cameras, I did a quick somersault so the camera could see that I was in space. And then all I wanted to do was sit by the window, look outside.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
did, I just kind of clipped myself back in. And there was some people doing our mission was a humanitarian mission. So we had a Muslim in it and a Jew on it, the youngest woman who went to space. I was doing it from like a girl from trauma could reach the outside. There's a guy doing science. We all had a different goal and mission, but all of us managed to kind of make sure we were all, taken care of. We're all hugging each other in space. We're all proving that, what things that can go on Earth, we can change all that demographic when we're up in space. And it just reignited that thing that I remember from 2000 when the Russians and the Americans were shaking hands. And I was just like, look at us. There's a war going on Earth between, Jews and Muslims. And here we are all hugging each other and mediating a whole conference together.
Hmm.
So yeah, all of us were crying and it was just an emotional experience.
Yeah.
But the view is nothing like they talk. Like everybody said, it's just phenomenal. Like it was magnetic and sparkly and it had this twinkle to it. And I was just, they tell you as well when you're doing your launch, they're saying, please do not touch the window. We don't want handprints or fingerprints. And I'm like smack against the window, going, oh my God, oh my God. All I wanted to do was swim in it. It was so intoxicating. It was just mesmerizing. I couldn't take my eyes off. And
Was it like
yeah, just
was it like the films, or do you think it was beyond anything that
I
we've
think
made?
it's beyond the films. It really is beyond.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to articulate the words for it. And even, I can understand now why a lot of the astronauts turn into artists afterwards because they try and repaint to recapture that memory again.
Hmm.
It's just something outstanding.
So what goes up must come down. How was the
Yeah. This is the
yeah.
unfortunate thing. The time passes way too fast. Yeah, and so when you come out, you reach a point called apogee, which is the highest point that they go. So the booster had separated from the capsule. Capsule keeps going forward. Booster relands, is reused again. Capsule comes down.
Mhm.
And as you pass the apogee, you start drifting back into Earth's orbit. And so the gravity pulls you back down. So when you hit Earth's orbit and you start coming down, it goes down fast, like
Mhm.
really fast.
Mhm.
And you can feel it. We hit 5.2 Gs coming in, which is like an elephant. So they sat in my chest, and you're like, you get winded. And again, white knuckling on, holding onto the side of the chair, looking out the window, and just watching the fragility of Earth's blue line, which is kind of similar to what I have behind me here on the screen. But you see the fragility of the line just getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and you suddenly start seeing patterns on Earth, and you start seeing the whole thing. And yeah, I was just crying my eyes out. I mean, half the time I'm trying to like shake my head to get the tears away, and I'm just talking into the comm center the whole time, saying, for all those girls whose dreams never came true, I'm proving they do. And yeah, it was truly emotional. I mean, the landing was a little bit more bumpier than we expected, but the seats have a great suspension system in them, and
Mhm.
all the parachutes opened, and everything went 100% as it should have done.
So I think I've got a couple more questions. I don't want to get too away from the space, but I think what you mentioned about for all those girls that are wanting to do something. I mean, you mentioned you're from Aberdeen. What would be your sort of message to young women that were in your situation and where you're at now, young Scottish women? And what would
There's
be your me?
always just to let them know there's always a way out. Like
Hmm.
there is, I'm a walking example. The dreams do come true, and to always just keep dreaming and reaching for the stars, quite literally,
Hmm.
because it's really important to not. I mean, over the years, I've had people call me all sorts of names. I had such vile like messages when I came back down to earth. I mean, unfortunately, there's another girl called Emily Cantarelli, a famous influencer who just flew, and she talked about it. And I mean, when it happened to me, I don't know. I guess it was because I was a little girl who from a place of shame. I kept thinking, well, did I not deserve this? Do people are so angry with me because they think that, I don't deserve it, or is there some reason? And people just like horrible name calling and just vile stuff. So I just think you got to rise above it. Like I've had that all through my life. I've had people call me names. I've had, there's always been jealousy. There's always been, where I thought there was no opportunity. just to keep dreaming. You've just
Hmm.
got to keep following your dream. Don't let anyone else dampen it. And don't think it's impossible because anything is possible.
Hmm. And do you have plans to go back to space?
Yes.
But you, it looks like you can't talk about that part.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. 110%. I get it now. It's like it's so addictive. It is so, yeah, it's just that one taste of space and you're like, I just need to go up there and see more. I just need to find out why it's like that. I want to go out there and touch it. Like for me now, I'm talking about a spacewalk. I'm hoping that will be in the cards. Um, without giving too much away, the person who was gonna help me do that did one recently, but now he's about to become a government official in America, so he's can no longer be my mentor, unfortunately.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, so I'm hoping, yeah, and I'm in discussions with SpaceX. I'm allowed to say that, and so I'm hoping that they're going to give me an opportunity to do perhaps a spacewalk, but definitely a 1 week mission in space. 10 minutes
Fantastic.
was not enough. I need a full
Sure.
week.
I know. Should put you up there. You can remote work.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get a team together as well. That for us, we want to do because I talk a lot about STEAM and STEM and girls from trauma and overcoming challenges and reaching for the stars. Our whole mission and goal in our shuttle is supposed to be about people who come from dysfunctional backgrounds, but have somehow managed to struggle through and prove to the world that they can achieve something. And I
Okay.
think that's really important.
Mhm.